I clean hotel room 313 every night. No one checks in there. The key that shouldn't exist. They say some rooms in old hotels hold on to memories like stains in the carpet. Memories that won't come out no matter how hard you scrub. I never believed in that kind of thing. Ghost stories were for tourists and tired night clerks looking to pass the time. But something changed the day I started working the night shift at the Silver Pines Inn. Now, every night at 2 a.m. I clean room 313. The strange part. No one ever checks in. Buddy. I started this job 2 months ago. Silver Pines Inn isn't exactly 5-star. It's the kind of roadside motel where the TVs are still fat-backed, the walls are paper-thin, and the beds creak louder than your conscience. But it was quiet, paid decently, and I didn't mind the graveyard shift. The manager, Mrs. Langley, was a sour-faced widow who barely said a word. During my orientation, she walked me through the rooms to be cleaned nightly, rattling off room numbers and warning me not to waste supplies. She paused when we got to room 313. "Don't worry about that one," she said flatly, turning the page on her clipboard. "It's not in use." "But it's on the keyboard," I pointed out. Room 313's key was hanging there, a little older and more tarnished than the others. She didn't look at me when she replied. "It's not in use." That should have been the end of it. Except a week later, I found a handwritten note in the janitor's closet. Just 4 words scribbled in jagged black ink. Clean 313. Every night. No name. No signature. No explanation. But attached to it was the old key. I didn't know what made me do it. Maybe I didn't want to lose the job. Maybe I was just curious. That first night, I hesitated outside the door longer than I cared to admit. Room 313 was at the far end of the hallway, past a soda machine that hadn't worked since the 90s and beneath a flickering ceiling light that hummed like a mosquito in your ear. The air near the door felt colder than the rest of the corridor. When I opened it, the scent hit me first. Not rot, not mold, just stillness. Like the room had been vacuum sealed in time. The lights flickered on when I flipped the switch, casting the entire room in a sickly yellow glow. Everything looked normal at first. A double bed with neatly tucked sheets. A dresser. Cracked mirror. But there was a dampness in the air that clung to my clothes, and no matter how many times I swept or dusted, I never felt like I was making progress. The clock on the nightstand was stuck at 2:13 a.m. Didn't even have batteries. That was the first night. I locked up afterward, returned the key, and told myself it was just a fluke. But then it became routine. Every night, no matter what, I'd find that same note tucked on top of the cleaning cart. Clean 313. Every night. I never saw who left it. I never saw Mrs. Langley mention it again. And strangely, I started to notice little differences inside the room each time. One night, the closet door was open just a crack. The next, the pillows were on the floor. Another night, the bathroom light was already on. But the most unsettling part. There was never dust. No footprints. No evidence that anyone had been in there. Just subtle changes, like the room was rearranging itself when no one was watching. 2 weeks in, I tried to bring it up with another staff member, Miguel, who worked the front desk during the day shift. "Hey," I asked casually, "do you know anything about room 313? He furrowed his brow. "We don't have a 313. Top floor ends at 312. Blinked. "No, there is a 313. It's at the end of the hall, past the soda machine." Miguel gave a dry laugh. "I've been here 6 years, man. There's no room past 312. That hall dead ends." I didn't argue. Just nodded and walked away. But that night, I stood in that hallway and stared at the door to room 313 for what felt like hours. It was there, right in front of me, solid and real. But the next day when I tried to show someone, there was only a wall. I didn't sleep that night. I called in sick the next shift and drove back to the motel during the day. The hallway looked different in the sunlight. Brighter, less menacing. The end really did seem to stop at room 312. No extra door. No soda machine. Nothing. I asked Mrs. Langley again. She didn't even look up from her desk. I told you room 313 is not in use. But it's there, I insisted. Every night. Clean it. There's a key. She raised her hand to cut me off, then slowly opened a drawer and held up the master room list. 312 rooms. Number 313. But when I got to work that night, the note was there. Just like always. Clean 313. Every night. This time I went in with my phone camera recording. Cleaned like usual. The bed was made. The mirror was still cracked. The clock was still stuck at 2:13. But when I watched the video afterward, the footage went black the moment I opened the door. 5 full minutes of nothing. Then the camera turned back on as I was locking the door. I didn't remember stopping the recording. Now I was scared. The next night I tried something different. I sprinkled baby powder on the floor after cleaning. Enough that any footprints, mine or someone else's, would show. I locked the door and left. When I came back at 3 a.m., the powder had been smeared. There were prints. Barefoot prints. Leading from the bed to the bathroom. But the door had been locked. The room had no windows. And when I checked the mirror, someone had written in the condensation, "Stay out." There was no condensation before. My hands trembled as I erased the message. I locked up and ran. I wanted to quit. I should have quit. But the next night the note was there again. And this time it said something new. It knows you see it. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know. But I have a feeling I'll find out soon. Because last night, the key wasn't on the hook. It was already in my pocket. The room remembers you. The key was cold in my pocket. I didn't remember taking it, and I was sure, absolutely certain, I'd placed it back on the hook before leaving last night. But there it was, nestled in my jacket, as if it had never left me. I stared at it in my hand for several long minutes, its brass surface dull and old, the little tag still marked with a faded number, 313. I didn't want to go back. I was scared now, truly scared. This wasn't some creaky old room with weird noises or flickering lights. This was something else. Something wrong. I couldn't explain it to anyone, because no one else even believed the room existed. Even during daylight hours, room 313 vanished like it had never been there. But at night it came back. The hallway felt longer than usual. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone, or something behind me. The hotel was dead silent except for my own footsteps and the soft buzz of that flickering light outside room 313. It cast long, warped shadows across the walls, making the wallpaper seem like it was squirming. I slipped the key into the lock. Turned too easily. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar yellow-lit interior. Nothing looked different. And yet everything felt worse. The smell was sharper tonight, like wet earth and metal. The air inside felt heavy, like it didn't want me there. I stepped in and instinctively looked at the mirror. The crack had grown. It now stretched all the way from the bottom left corner to the top right like a lightning bolt across the glass. My reflection wavered, as though I was being filmed underwater. I took a step closer and blinked. For a split second, I saw something behind me in the reflection. Shape. Black, tall, unmoving. I turned quickly, nothing. Checked the bathroom. Closet. Under the bed. Nothing. Still I cleaned. I wiped surfaces that didn't need wiping. I straightened sheets that were already straight. It had become a ritual now, something I had to do, even if I didn't know why. Maybe the act of cleaning kept whatever was inside the room calm. Maybe it was watching and this was its way of testing me. As I was scrubbing the corner of the nightstand, I found something tucked between it and the wall. Photograph. It was old, the edges curling and yellowing. The image showed a family standing in that very room. Same wallpaper. Same cracked mirror. A man, woman, and 2 children. All smiling. Only their eyes had been scratched out. Every single one of them. The marks weren't random either. They were deep, jagged scratches, almost angry, carved into the photo with something sharp. I dropped the picture and backed away. My breath caught in my throat. That's when I noticed the closet door. It was open again. But this time not just a crack. It was wide open. I stepped closer, heart pounding, and reached inside. Just clothes. A janitor's uniform hanging from a hook. An old suitcase. Nothing unusual at first glance. But then I saw the writing on the inside of the closet door. Faint. Scribbled over and over again in pencil. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. Hundreds of times, layered on top of each other. My flashlight began to flicker, the beam weakening. I stepped back, the closet door slowly creaking shut on its own. I turned to leave, and stopped cold. The bed. There was now a deep indent in the mattress, like someone had just been lying there. I hadn't seen it when I walked in. I hadn't made it. I approached slowly. My hand trembled as I reached toward the bedspread. Pulled it back quickly. Nothing. Just sheets. No blood, no body. But under the pillow, another note. It wasn't like the others. It was torn from the motel's own notepad. The words were scrawled in frantic handwriting. Don't stop. If you stop, it wakes up. I dropped the note and left. I didn't even lock the door. I ran back to the front desk, gasping for breath. The night was silent. Mrs. Langley's office was dark. There was no one else around. And the key. The key was no longer in my pocket. The next day I refused to come in. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't check messages. I drank until the sun came up, trying to forget the feeling of those eyes watching me in the mirror. But the following night the note was back. Sitting on my porch this time. Folded plain, no envelope. Just the familiar words. Clean 313. Every night. I didn't know how it got there. I didn't know who left it. But the key was on top of it again. This time it looked newer. The brass was polished. The tag was clean. Almost like it was freshly made. I told myself I wouldn't go. I paced my living room for hours. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. came and went. But at 2 a.m., I found myself standing in front of room 313 again. I didn't even remember driving there. The hallway was darker than before. The flickering light had gone out completely, plunging the corridor into a dim gloom. As I approached the door, I noticed something etched into the wood, carved with something rough and blunt. Name. Not just once, but over and over again. Daniel. My real name. I'd never told anyone at the hotel. I used my middle name on the application. Alex. Only my family knew me as Daniel. Hands shaking, I unlocked the door. The room was colder than ever. Frost clung to the corners of the mirror. The television was on, flickering static. The clock still read 2:13. Something was different this time. The walls looked closer. The ceiling lower. Like the room had shrunk. I stood in the center, heart racing, unsure of what to do. I didn't want to clean. I didn't want to stay. But I couldn't leave. Something in the air pressed against my chest like a weight. I bent over, gasping, and the moment I touched the floor, everything changed. The lights went out. Pitch black swallowed the room. Then a whisper. Female. You're not supposed to be here. I spun around, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would tear through my ribs. You saw too much. Another whisper, this time from the closet. I ran to the door and tried the knob. Impossible, I had the key. I fumbled in my pocket. Nothing. No key. I pounded on the door, screaming, but no sound came from my mouth. My voice was gone. Like something had ripped it away. Then the mirror lit up. It didn't reflect the room anymore. Instead I saw the hallway outside. But it wasn't empty. Someone was walking toward the door. A man in a janitor's uniform. Face obscured in shadow. But his name tag was visible. Daniel. He raised a hand and knocked on the mirror from the other side. Once. 3 times. Then he smiled. His teeth were long. Too long. And sharp. I fell backward, landing hard on the floor. When I looked again, the mirror was just a mirror. I was alone again. The lights flickered back on. The door opened. I stumbled out, breath ragged, knees weak. Room 313 stood silently behind me. Waiting. As I backed away, the door closed on its own. Blick. When I returned to the front desk, the key was back on the hook. As if I'd never taken it. As if none of it had happened. But I know what I saw. I know who I saw. And now the note on my cleaning cart doesn't say, Clean 313 anymore. Tonight it said, Daniel, you forgot to dust under the bed. Dust and whispers. The next morning I woke up on my kitchen floor. I had no memory of coming home. No memory of driving, undressing, or collapsing. My uniform still smelled like old carpet and mildew, and my fingers were gray with dust. Under my nails was something black and sticky, and my tongue tasted like rust. I rushed to the sink and vomited. When I stood back up, something was written in the condensation on the window above the sink. Under the bed. The air turned cold. I stood there, staring at it, the letters fading slowly as the glass cleared. I hadn't cleaned anything. I hadn't written anything. But it was there, like the room had followed me home. I didn't work that day. Couldn't. I called the hotel, but the line rang and rang. No voicemail, no answer. Just static. Not silence, static. A low, crackling hiss that sent shivers up my spine. I didn't call again. I watched the clock instead, dreading the approach of night. 9 p.m. 10:30 p.m. Midnight. Nothing happened. No notes. No key. I even checked outside my front door 3 times. Still nothing. At 1 a.m., I finally began to relax. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe whatever I had stumbled into had moved on to someone else. I was just a janitor. I wasn't special. I had no reason to be chosen. Then the lights went out. Every light in the house gone. A loud click echoed from every socket. The refrigerator groaned, then went silent. My phone screen refused to light up. Not even a flashlight worked. I sat in complete darkness. Then I heard it. A dragging sound. From under my bed. Not in the hallway. Not outside. Under. But froze. My breathing stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. The dragging continued, slow, deliberate, and wet. I tiptoed to the bedroom door. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to open it. But something compelled me. A pressure in my skull, like invisible fingers urging me forward. Open the door. The bed was exactly as I left it. Made. No monsters. No ghosts. Until I crouched down. And saw the eyes. 2 eyes wide open, unblinking, staring back at me from the darkness under the bed. I didn't scream. Couldn't. The face was mine. A perfect mirror of my own, only bloodied and pale, with black sludge dripping from the mouth. It smiled. Then whispered, "You forgot to clean." The eyes rolled back into its head. The face retreated into the shadows. And the dragging stopped. I scrambled away, slammed the bedroom door, and didn't sleep. I stayed in the hallway until the sun came up, holding a kitchen knife in one hand and the Bible in the other, though I hadn't been to church since I was a kid. That morning, I swore I'd never return to the hotel. I even started drafting a resignation email. I just wanted to be done. I wanted a new town, a new job, anything that didn't involve room 313. But at 2 p.m. I got a knock at the door. It was a delivery guy holding a small package. No return address. Just a note attached. Missed a spot. Inside the box was a dust rag. Soaked in blood. Threw up again. Then I cried. That night the key was back. Sitting on my pillow. Gleaming in the moonlight like it had always been there. I tried burning it. The flames turned blue and went out instantly. I tried flushing it. It reappeared in the sink. Eventually I gave up. I put on my uniform, pocketed the key, and drove back to the hotel. It was darker than usual. Not just unlit dark. Like the shadows were alive, crawling over the walls, choking the building from the outside. The front desk was empty. No sign of Mrs. Langley. No sound. No movement. Just silence. And that key. It buzzed in my pocket like a living thing. I climbed the stairs, each one groaning under my weight. At the top, the hallway stretched out like a tunnel into a black void. The light outside room 313 flickered once, then exploded. Glass rained down around me. I shielded my face and cursed. Then I looked at the door. It was already open. Wait, like it had been waiting for me. The room was pitch black inside. I stepped through, heart pounding. The air was icy. My breath fogged in front of me, hanging in the air like mist. I turned on my flashlight. The beam was weak. It illuminated just enough to show the mirror, and the figure standing in front of it. Me. But not me. His eyes were hollow sockets, and his skin was gray, stretched tightly over bone. He raised a hand and mimicked my every move a second too late. Like a broken reflection. Then he pointed. To the bed. Turned. There was something under it this time. Shape. Wrapped in a motel bedsheet. It wasn't moving. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to look. But my body moved on its own. I reached down and pulled back the sheet. It was me. Mouth open. Eyes wide. A black smear running down from the nose. My name tag was pinned crookedly to my uniform. Daniel. I stumbled backward, tripping over the carpet. When I looked up, the mirror was empty. No reflection. Just a message written in red. We all clean. Eventually. The door slammed shut behind me. Then came the whispering. Dozens of voices. All around me. From the walls, the ceiling, the floor. Clean. 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 You forgot. You forgot. It's your turn. It's your turn. I screamed. Kicked the door. Pounded the walls. My flashlight flickered and died. The whispering grew louder, turning into laughter. Low, mocking like children in a dark playground. Suddenly the closet creaked open. Hand reached out. Onless. Curled toward me. I pressed myself into the corner, eyes squeezed shut. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The door was open. The closet was closed. The room was spotless. And I was standing with a broom in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up. I didn't remember cleaning anything. But the dust was gone. The sheets were neat. Even the mirror was whole again, no cracks. Just my reflection, staring back at me like none of it had happened. I walked out. At the front desk, the day manager was back. Some kid in his 20s I'd never seen before. He smiled at me. Hey, you're the night guy, right? I saw your name on the schedule. Daniel, right? I stared at him. He tilted his head. You okay? I turned and looked back down the hall. Room 313 stood quietly at the end, the light above it gently humming. He nodded. Yeah, I said. I'm fine. 'Cause now I understood. Room 313 doesn't get cleaned. Cleans you. The ones who came before. The next few nights bled into each other like smeared ink across wet paper. Room 313 waited for me. Always open. Always cold. The door would creak wider the moment I stepped onto the top floor, as if it were breathing me in. I didn't fight it anymore. The routine had taken root. Look. Step inside. Clean. Only there was no dirt. Not anymore. Instead I found things. Objects that shouldn't be there. A child's shoe, sitting in the middle of the floor, soaked in something sticky and dark. A wedding ring on the nightstand, etched with the initials C+M, still warm to the touch. A cracked Polaroid of a man standing in the corner of the room, staring directly into the camera with empty eyes. Each night a different object appeared. Each night I would place it in the drawer beneath the mirror. And each morning it would vanish. The drawer would be empty again. But I knew they weren't gone. I could hear them. In the walls. Behind the mirror. Breathing. Shifting. Waiting. On the 7th night, I brought salt and a Bible. A woman on an internet forum said it could cleanse a haunted space. I laid a circle of salt around the bed and placed the Bible in the center. Room 313 laughed at me. Not in words but in movement. The wallpaper bubbled and peeled. The ceiling creaked like it was breathing. And something wet began dripping from the air vent, thick and black like used oil. The Bible caught fire. Bright blue flames devoured it in seconds, leaving behind only ash and the smell of burnt meat. I didn't try cleansing again. Instead, I began investigating. During the day, I searched hotel records. The front desk manager, Trevor, young, eager, and completely unaware, let me into the old filing room. Room 313 hadn't been booked in 17 years. No guests, no walk-ins, no reservations, but it had notes, memos from past staff, scribbled warnings, frantic handwriting. Don't go in if the mirror is covered. If you hear breathing, leave immediately. Do not answer if the room speaks your name. And one page, more recent than the others, dated just 3 months ago. He said he was the cleaner. He was wrong. The room decides who serves. It was signed I had never met anyone by those initials. But when I showed the note to Trevor, he grew pale. He whispered, "That was Marcus. He was the janitor before you. What happened to him?" "He quit," Trevor said. "Just stopped showing up." I didn't believe that. Not after what I'd seen. That night I brought a tape recorder. I set it on the nightstand and hit record before starting my shift. I spoke out loud as I worked, narrating everything I saw. "The air is cold," I said. "There's something under the carpet. It bulges when I walk past the window. There's blood in the sink again. It won't wash off." At exactly 3:13 a.m., the mirror cracked down the center. A voice emerged, not from the recorder, not from the room, but from inside my own head. "Daniel," it rasped. "Help us." It was layered. Not one voice but many. Male and female, old and young, all tangled together like a choir of the forgotten. I dropped the mop and backed into the corner. The air thickened. The lights dimmed, even though the bulb was brand new. Then I saw them. Figures. Faint outlines in the corners of the room. Some knelt, scrubbing invisible stains. Others stared blankly into the mirror. One floated near the ceiling, arms stretched toward the light fixture, eyes black and oozing. All of them wore my uniform. All of them had name tags. Marcus, Clara, Elliot. Names I'd never heard but suddenly knew. I stepped closer to one of them. Woman. Mid-30s. Her lips moved soundlessly over and over. When I leaned in, I heard the whisper. "We didn't clean fast enough." Suddenly the mirror pulsed. The reflection inside twisted. Furniture bent at impossible angles, blood smearing upward instead of down. My own face in the reflection screamed and pointed at something behind me. Turned. The closet was open. A man stood inside. Face gone, completely removed. Just a smooth, blank canvas of skin. No eyes. No mouth. No nose. But he was breathing. Loud, wet breaths. Like something clogged his throat. He stepped out and held up a rag. My rag. It was soaked in fresh blood. He reached toward me. Ran. I bolted from the room, flew down the stairs 2 at a time, and didn't stop running until I hit my car. I didn't sleep that day. I didn't even go home. I parked in a 24-hour diner parking lot and sat there, eyes wide, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the real world. I listened to the tape. There was static for the first hour. Then faint footsteps. Then, at exactly 3:13, a voice whispered through the speaker. "Daniel, clean the bones." That was it. No screams. No mirror cracks. No sounds of me running. Just that single horrifying sentence. I hit rewind and played it again. "Daniel, clean the bones." I threw the recorder onto the floor and stomped on it until it broke. The next night I didn't want to go. But the key was back in my pocket. No matter what pants I wore, no matter how far I threw it returned. So I drove. Room 313 looked normal. Light fixed. Carpet flat. Mirror whole. But the second I stepped in, the door slammed shut behind me and locked with a click. This time the closet door opened on its own. Inside wasn't a hanging rack or storage. It was a tunnel. Dirt-lined, narrow, breathing. And from deep within it, I heard that voice again. "Daniel." It was no longer a whisper. It was a command. I stepped inside. The tunnel closed behind me. And the darkness swallowed me whole. Beneath room 313. The tunnel curved downward in a way that defied logic, as if it were spiraling into the stomach of something ancient and alive. My phone had no signal, no flashlight, and when I checked the time, the screen was frozen on 3:13 a.m. The walls breathed. Not figuratively, literally. The damp earth expanded and contracted around me like lungs. Every few steps, I had to pause and steady myself as the ceiling lowered and rose again with the pulse of it. The deeper I went, the louder the sounds became. Scratching, whispering, moaning. I should have turned back. But there was no back anymore. Behind me the tunnel had closed. Dirt filled the space where I came from, as though it had never existed. I was being swallowed. After what felt like hours, the tunnel widened into a chamber. It was lit, not by lamps or bulbs, but by a faint reddish glow that seeped from the walls themselves, like magma trapped in glass. And in the center of the room, there was a pile of bones. Not clean white ones. These were yellowed, some still glistening with decay. Flesh clung to a few. Hair. Clothes. Hotel uniforms. I knew then I wasn't the first. But what truly broke me wasn't the bones. It was the faces carved into the walls. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Human faces, stretched in eternal terror, mouths open, eyes wide. I ran my fingers across one and felt the cold dampness of stone. Yet the eyes blinked. Just once. Behind me a voice said, "You missed a spot. Turn." It was Marcus. Not the ghostly version from the mirror. This Marcus bled. His uniform was torn, and his name tag dangled from one thread. But his face, it was human. He smiled, crooked and sad. "I thought I could leave too," he said. "But the room never forgets who it owns." He walked to the pile of bones and began sorting through them, muttering names as he did. Clara, Samuel, Eddie, all of us cleaners. All of us trying to scrub away the rot. I asked him, "What is this place?" Marcus didn't answer. He pointed toward the far wall where a door stood. Not a tunnel, not stone. A door just like the one to room 313. Same brass handle. Same peeling number. "But that's impossible," I said. "We're underground." Marcus nodded. "Room 313 exists everywhere it needs to." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn-out cleaning rag, same as mine. "You want to survive. Start scrubbing." I didn't move. "Why?" he asked. "What happens if I don't?" The bones answered for him. They twitched. Slowly they began to shift and roll, forming something. Shape. A figure rising from the pile, limbs made of femurs and ribs, head stitched together from skull fragments. Stood. And it watched me. Marcus backed away. "It wants to be clean. If it's not, it makes you part of the mess." The bone creature took a step toward me. I panicked and dropped to my knees, using my own rag to wipe the floor, scrubbing furiously though nothing was there. The creature paused. It tilted its head. Kept scrubbing. Marcus whispered, "Good. But keep going." Hours passed. Maybe days. My hands blistered. My arms ached. But I didn't stop. I scrubbed every inch of that chamber, even when there was no dirt, no grime, no stain. I scrubbed because I could feel the thing's breath on my neck every time I slowed. Eventually, the creature crumbled back into the bone pile. And Marcus was gone. Alone again, I turned toward the door. It opened. And beyond it, room 313, exactly as I remembered it. Me. Silent. Waiting. I stepped through. The tunnel vanished behind me. I was back on the 3rd floor. My cart still sat outside the door, untouched. But everything had changed. Now when I cleaned room 313, it watched me. The air moved when I moved. The mirror showed reflections of things not in the room. Flashes of the bone chamber, glimpses of other cleaners scrubbing floors that bled. And sometimes, just for a second, I'd see Marcus, standing in the corner, eyes hollow. I tried quitting. I tried resigning. The manager looked confused. "You don't work here," he said. "This floor's been closed for years." He showed me the staff list. My name wasn't on it. Neither was Marcus's. I went home, but the key followed. I burned my uniform. It reappeared in my closet. And then one night I didn't go. That was the first time I heard scratching inside my walls. The next day my ceiling bled. So I returned. Each night I clean room 313. 'Cause if I stop, I'll be part of the pile. The walls whisper now. Not just names but commands. Polish the sink. Scrub the mirror. Bleach the bones. And I do it. Because I've seen what happens to those who don't. You may never check into room 313. But if you ever hear your name from behind a locked hotel door, don't answer. Or you might end up just like me. Cleaning the room. That no one ever leaves. The replacement. For the first time in weeks, I woke up in a bed that wasn't my own. Crisp, unfamiliar sheets, pale yellow walls, and a scent of lavender and ammonia clung to everything like decay hidden beneath perfume. My memory blurred. Had I made it home after my last shift? Or had I ever truly left room 313? The sound of a knock interrupted the fog in my head. 3 sharp raps. I turned toward the door, heart racing. I already knew who or what stood behind it. Time to get to work. The voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was the same voice I'd been hearing for days. Soft, calm, commanding. I stood dazed. My hotel uniform hung on the hook by the closet. No matter how many times I destroyed it, it reappeared. Folded. Pressed. Waiting. I slid into it like second skin. Down the hallway I didn't recognize the corridor. The carpet pattern shifted underfoot. The lighting flickered like candle flames. Room numbers weren't sequential. 310, 308, 305. Then suddenly 313. The brass numbers shone like they were freshly polished, though I hadn't done it yet. I hesitated at the door. My hand reached for the handle without my permission. Something deeper, something buried, craved routine. As if cleaning this room was now an instinct like breathing. Inside, the room was colder than it had ever been. The walls were sweating. Not moisture, something thicker. I stepped in. A girl was already there. Young. Late teens, maybe. She was crouched by the bathtub, scrubbing the tiles with broken nails. Her hands bled from the effort. She didn't look up. Froze. "What are you doing here?" She didn't respond. Just kept scrubbing. Her movements were jerky, mechanical, like a marionette yanked by invisible strings. I walked toward her slowly, a sick realization dawning. She looked familiar. Too familiar. Same mole under the left eye. Same burned scar on her forearm. She looked like me. Only older. He paused, sensing me. Turned her head slightly. Her voice cracked like dry wood. "They always need a cleaner." Before I could speak again, the room pulsed. Lights flickered violently. The air thickened into syrup. The door slammed shut behind me. And the girl vanished. In her place, the bathtub overflowed with black water. I backed away, heart slamming. The water rippled, then parted as something rose from within. A hand, thin and pale, gripping the tub's edge. Then another. A head followed, covered in matted hair, long and dripping with tar-like sludge. No eyes. Just skin where they should be. It dragged itself out slowly, deliberately. Bones cracking with every movement. I stumbled and fell backward, crawling away toward the bed. But there was someone already lying on it. Man. Will. Face turned to the ceiling. Mouth wide open in a silent scream. Eyes burned out. It was the hotel manager. His name tag still clung to his shirt. Mr. Halberd. I had just spoken to him 2 nights ago. Or thought I had. He turned his head toward me, without moving his neck. Just the face, twisting unnaturally, cartilage grinding against skin. His mouth opened, and the voice that came out wasn't his. "You left the mirror unpolished." I screamed. The light bulbs above exploded. Glass rained down like confetti. The walls began to shift again, peeling away to reveal a corridor behind each one. A mirror in every direction, each showing a different version of me. One version was hanging from the ceiling fan. Another was clawing her way out from beneath the bed. One banged her head into the wall over and over, until it split open like a melon. And in the center of all of them, I remained frozen, surrounded by horrors of myself. I pressed my hands over my eyes and screamed. When I opened them, I was standing in the lobby. But it was wrong. Guests stood with their backs to me, all of them frozen. Some flickered like static. One turned slightly, and her face was smooth. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Just skin. The front desk phone rang. I stepped toward it in a trance and picked it up. A whisper. "You're promoted." Blick. I turned and found a new door behind the reception desk. It hadn't been there before. Made of dark wood, carved with shifting faces. A brass placard read, "Head of Sanitation, authorized personnel only." I should have run. Should have burned the place down. But my feet moved on their own. I stepped through. Inside there was only darkness, until one single bulb flickered on, revealing dozens of uniforms. Like mine. Each one belonged to a cleaner. Real one. A ghost. Memory. Legacy. And pinned to the wall, above all of them, was a mirror. In it I saw myself. Only now my face was flickering. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was the girl from the tub. Sometimes it was Marcus. And sometimes it was nothing at all. A note was pinned below the mirror. Just 2 words etched in blood. "You're next." And somewhere behind me I heard the cart rolling. It was time to clean again. Room 313 was waiting. The shift never ends. When I woke up again, I was already standing. My hands were gripping the cleaning cart's handle, the scent of bleach and rust thick in the air. My feet were bare. The hallway was dimmer than before, the overhead lights humming with a low, throbbing sound, like the hotel itself had a pulse. I didn't remember leaving the strange office behind the reception desk. I didn't remember sleeping. All I knew was that room 313 was just ahead, and I had to get inside. But this time the hallway didn't make sense. The numbers were all wrong again, jumbled like someone had shaken a deck of cards. Room 105. Room 999. Room 22. Then 313 again and again, repeating like a loop. Each 313 door looked different. One was wooden, rotting, with claw marks down the center. The next was metal, rusted with chains bolted across it. The third was covered in fleshy material, pulsing slightly, like a living organism. And the one I recognized, the original door, stood silently at the end. I knew it would be the right one because something inside it had started calling me by name. Opened it. This time the room was empty. Perfectly made. Clean bed. Vacuumed carpet. No blood. No rot. No flickering lights. It should have been a relief. But the silence was louder than any scream. I turned around ready to leave, and the door was gone. Just wall. The mirror above the dresser flashed once, showing my reflection. Only it wasn't me. It was Marcus. He was standing where I stood, same uniform, same stance, but his face was hollow-eyed. He mouthed something. "Don't turn around." Froze. A sharp sound scratched across the carpet behind me, like nails dragging. I didn't breathe. Then I heard it whisper. "Cleaner. Cleaner. Cleaner." The voice came from directly behind my ear, though I could feel no breath. It was like the room itself spoke. My eyes stayed locked on the mirror. Marcus kept mouthing something else. Faster now. Repeating it. "Don't let it in. Don't let it in. Don't." Too late. The mirror shattered. Shards flew outward and stopped midair, hovering. They all turned to face me. Tiny floating pieces of reflective glass. In each one I saw a different version of myself. One was crawling on the ceiling, blood dripping from her mouth. Another stood in flames. One had no eyes, just gaping black holes. The air vibrated. The floating glass twisted, aimed at me. And then all at once they plunged forward. I screamed. But no pain came. Instead, when I opened my eyes again, I was back in the laundry room. A cart sat before me, stacked with towels soaked in dark liquid. The machines hummed around me, even though the dials all read off. I wasn't alone. A woman stood at the back of the room, her head bowed. Hair covered her face. Her dress was soaked in crimson. She slowly raised her hand and pointed at me. Then her voice filled the room, too loud for a whisper, too soft for a scream. "You took my shift." Backed away. "I didn't mean to. I didn't." "She never stops," the woman said. "She needs her room clean. Every night. Or she moves." "Moves where?" The woman smiled, though her mouth stayed closed. "Into you." Suddenly the washers rattled. Doors flew open. Arms reached out from within, grabbing at nothing, clawing at air. I bolted from the room, only to find myself standing in the elevator hallway. The lights above the elevator blinked erratically. The door slid open. I shouldn't have stepped in. I knew that. But my body didn't listen anymore. Inside, the floor was covered in water. The walls were mirrors. All of them showed me standing inside. But in every reflection, something stood behind me. Finless. No mouth. Just long fingers reaching. The elevator didn't move. There were no buttons. Just one word etched into the panel where buttons should have been. "Down." I screamed and pounded the wall. The elevator dropped. Faster and faster and faster. And then it stopped. Total blackness. The door slid open. What I saw wasn't the hotel. It was something beneath it. A massive, endless room filled with beds. Hospital beds. Each with someone strapped down. Each cleaner I'd seen in the mirrors. Each version of myself. They all turned to look at me with hollow, begging eyes. One of them opened her mouth and let out a soundless cry, mouthing a single word. "Help!" I stepped forward, tears stinging my eyes. Siren wailed. The ground shook. And from the far end of the endless space it came. A towering figure, faceless. Its body a mass of stretched uniforms, towels and name tags. Limbs melted into limbs. It dragged itself forward, each movement echoing like thunder. As it approached, the air grew thick. My vision blurred. I turned to run. And hit a wall. No exit. Nowhere to go. Just the smell of bleach and rot and the sound of the cart rolling toward me. The creature leaned down, and though it had no mouth, I heard it whisper clearly. "Your shift is permanent." I screamed. And woke up in room 313. The bed was neatly made. The bathroom door creaked open on its own. And the mirror showed me wearing a new name tag. One I didn't recognize. But it was mine now. Because I was no longer the guest. I was the staff. And my shift had just begun. Housekeeping forever. I stopped checking the clock. Time didn't exist the way it used to. I cleaned room 313 over and over, sometimes 5-6 times in what I thought was a single night. Each time I finished, the door would close behind me, and I'd find myself in another hallway, or the lobby, or even inside the room again as if I'd never left. There was no beginning or end. Only the loop. The strangest part was that no matter how often I saw blood, claw marks, or rotting furniture, no matter how many times I found something unnatural waiting in the bathtub or peering from behind the curtains, I kept cleaning. Something inside me had snapped. Not broken. Changed. Sometimes I saw other people. But they never saw me. Once I walked past the front desk and saw Marcus again, hunched over the computer. But he was frozen like a mannequin. His mouth hung open, eyes wide with horror. A single tear had dried on his cheek. I leaned close and whispered his name. His head turned an inch, then cracked, then snapped all the way around to face me. I screamed, backed away, and the lobby was empty again. No Marcus, no computer, just dust, cobwebs, and the sound of keys clinking softly behind the counter. I stopped asking why. I started remembering. Not everything, but fragments. A girl. Running. Bloody footprints. Suitcase. A scream muffled behind wallpaper. Was that me? Was that someone else? Room 313 never gave answers. It only gave more shifts. That night, or what passed for night, I found something different. When I entered 313, a guest was already inside. He sat on the edge of the bed, pale and shaking, holding his arms like they might fall off. His eyes met mine the moment I entered. "You're real," he whispered. I nodded slowly. "I think so." "I didn't mean to check in," he said. "They told me they had no vacancies, but then they gave me this room. No. I can't get out." I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Bad choice. The lock clicked on its own. The man flinched. "I've tried everything," he said. "Smashing the windows, busting through the walls. This room. It grows back." I looked around. He wasn't lying. Faint cracks were still healing in the mirror. A corner of the wallpaper was curling up, slowly smoothing itself back down. "Sometimes," he whispered, "I hear someone cleaning in the walls." My throat tightened. He looked up at me again. "Do you work here?" I nodded again. "Can you get me out?" I opened my mouth to answer, but then heard it. The rolling of wheels. The squeak of a cleaning cart just outside the door. But I hadn't brought my cart in. And I was already inside. Then who was out there? The man stood quickly. "What is that?" I moved to the door and placed my hand on the knob. It was ice cold. From the other side, something heavy pressed against it. Something breathing. Slowly, a slip of paper slid under the door. It was a printed housekeeping checklist. The guest's name was at the top. Colin Myers. Under tasks, all items were marked off. Sheets changed. Mirror wiped. Trash emptied. Occupant removed. The last one wasn't just checked. It was burned into the paper. Suddenly, Colin cried out. His hands gripped his head. He stumbled backwards, screaming. "They said I didn't belong here. I tried to leave, I tried." His body jerked violently, and then something peeled out of him. A second version of Colin. Gray-skinned. Lifeless. Hollow-eyed. It stepped forward, looked at me, and then walked into the wall. Phased right through it. The real Colin collapsed, panting. "I think it took my soul," he gasped. I knelt beside him, hands shaking. "We need to get you out. There has to be a way." Colin grabbed my wrist. "You're not stuck here like me. Are you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I think I was. Maybe I still am." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a room key. "Not 313. Room 101. I found this on the floor when I woke up. I don't know why I kept it." I stared at the key. Room 101 wasn't on my floor. I had never cleaned it. But it might be an exit. I helped Colin to his feet, and we turned toward the door. It was gone. Only wallpaper now. But the key in my hand was glowing faintly. Colin nodded. "Try it." I pressed the key against the wall. For a second, just a blink, a door appeared. And opened. Beyond it was a long stone hallway. Dark. Wet. Lined with other doors. But one of them at the end had a flickering sign. Exit. We didn't wait. We ran. Down the hall. Past shadows that flinched away from the light. Past doors that thumped with unseen fists behind them. Closer. Closer. And then, a scream echoed behind us. Turned. Room 313 was following. Not just the room. The entire space. Like it had ripped itself from the hotel and was now dragging itself across the hallway behind us. Tendrils of carpet and blood-stained wallpaper reaching for us. Colin shouted. "Go!" We burst through the exit door. White light. Blinding. I blinked, and found myself standing at the edge of the hotel parking lot. The sun was up. Birds chirped. A breeze touched my face. I looked over. Colin was gone. No trace. No prints. Just me. I turned around. The hotel was still there. But room 313 had been bricked up. A new sign hung on the lobby door. Closed for renovations. I walked to my car. The keys were in my pocket. The radio played static. And in the rearview mirror I saw a cart. Just sitting there in the middle of the lot. Waiting. Do not disturb. I didn't go back. Not for a while. I stayed at a cheap motel outside of town for 3 days, trying to forget the rusted smell of room 313, the sound of unseen hands dragging fingernails along plaster, the way time unraveled in that cursed place. I kept the blinds shut and the lights on. Hardly slept. When I did drift off, I dreamed of white sheets soaked in black water, mirrors reflecting someone else's face, and a voice that whispered again and again, "Room service is forever." On the fourth morning, I woke up with a start and found a folded note on my nightstand. I hadn't heard anyone come in. I unfolded the paper slowly. It was another checklist. My name at the top. Ballot box with check, mirror wiped. Ballot box with check, sheets changed. Ballot box with check, occupant removed. The last box wasn't checked. I crumpled it and bolted out of the motel, heart pounding, adrenaline already spiking. I told myself I was going home. I told myself I was getting out of this town entirely. But my car didn't turn toward the freeway. Took me back to the hotel. The parking lot was empty. Not abandoned. Not overgrown. As if time was waiting. The "closed for renovations" sign still hung on the front door. But now there was something else. A new note, taped below the sign in neat black lettering. Cleaning staff only. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. The door creaked open without resistance. Inside, the lobby was silent. The air was thicker, dimmer. The chandeliers flickered faintly above, and dust floated like slow snowflakes. The front desk was unmanned. No Marcus. No ringing bell. No computer. Just a single plastic badge on the counter. "Welcome back." I didn't want to go upstairs. But I did. The carpet felt softer beneath my feet. Almost too soft, like wet moss. I walked past familiar rooms. Past the laundry chute where I once saw something slither. Past the vending machine that always buzzed without power. At the end of the hallway, room 313. Or what remained of it. The door was gone. In its place, fresh drywall and paint. No doorknob, no peephole, nothing. But I felt it. It was still there. I pressed my hand to the wall. It was warm. Pulsing almost. Then I heard it. The distant sound of a vacuum. Rolling wheels. And a knock. 3 soft knocks from behind the wall. I stepped back, heart thudding. Then I noticed the cart. My old cleaning cart right there beside me. Fully stocked. It was free. As if no time had passed. I didn't touch it. Instead, I walked back down the hallway, determined to leave again. But every hallway led back to 313. Every stairwell ended at the 4th floor. Every window looked out at the same parking lot. And it was always night now. That was the moment I understood. I had never left. I might have stepped outside. I might have seen sunlight. But it was still part of the loop. Still part of 313's game. I was still its employee. And I had one last room to clean. Not 313. Room 101. The key was in my pocket again. No explanation. No memory of putting it there. I took the elevator down. The first floor had a different scent. Stronger. Bleach mixed with something burnt. Room 101 was at the far end of a hallway I swear didn't exist before. The carpet was blood red. The lights flickered in a slow rhythm like breathing. The door to 101 was already ajar. Pushed it open. Inside, the room was pristine. White sheets. Polished wood. Mirror spotless. Except for one thing. On the bed sat a small black book. No title. No markings. I opened it slowly. Inside were pages and pages of names. Thousands. Some crossed out. Some circled. My name was at the bottom. Unmarked. Suddenly the bathroom door creaked open. I wasn't alone. A figure stepped out. Skin loose like it didn't fit properly. No eyes, just sunken dark hollows. It wore a hotel uniform. My uniform. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it clearly. "Your shift isn't over." I dropped the book and ran. But the hallway wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a tunnel. Twisting. Spiraling. Made of bedsheets and mops and vacuums and ticking clocks and broken bones. Voices screamed from every corner. Some I recognized. Cullen. Marcus. The girl I once saw vanish into the mirror. They were all staff now. Trapped like me. Or worse, they liked it. Kept running. Eventually, I burst through a door and collapsed onto tile. The hotel laundry room. My reflection stared at me from a cracked panel of glass. But it wasn't moving with me. It was still, grinning, holding a duster. Then it raised its hand. And knocked. Once. 3 times. From inside the mirror. The lights went out. Final checkout. When the lights returned, they flickered as if reluctant to show me what waited in the darkness. The laundry room was no longer as I remembered. It was cleaner, brighter, but wrong in a way I couldn't explain. The air tasted like copper. The walls pulsed slightly, like something alive lived just beneath them. I stood slowly. My knees ached, and I was soaked in sweat. The mirror, cracked and grimy moments before, was now whole, gleaming, even. My reflection stood there. But it wasn't mine anymore. It wore the uniform I had on my first day. Fresh, pressed, crisp name tag that read Jacob. And it smiled. It raised a hand and pointed behind me. Turned. Cart waited there, pristine. And atop it, another checklist. This one was different. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. In my handwriting. The items were simple. Ballot box with check change sheets. Ballot box with check clean mirror. Ballot box with check vacuum carpet. Final guest checkout. Underneath the list, scribbled in red pen. Don't forget to clock out this time. The doors out of the laundry room were gone. There was only one direction to go, into the service hallway I didn't recognize. It was narrow, dark, and lined with hundreds of room doors. None of them had numbers. Just blank black plaques. As I pushed the cart forward, the wheels squeaked louder than they should have. My footsteps echoed like I was walking through a cathedral. At last, I reached a single open doorway. Inside was room 313. The real room 313. No longer a guest room. Now it was something between a morgue and a church. The bed was gone, replaced by a long black table. On the table, dozens of room keys scattered like bones. The walls pulsed with faint, rhythmic heartbeats. In the center of the ceiling, a large round clock ticked backward. And in the center of the room, seated in a high-backed chair, was the final guest. It was me. Not a reflection. Not a ghost. Me. Older. Paler. Eyes sunken, lips dry, uniform soaked with time. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment I saw something behind those eyes. Recognition. He spoke, voice dry as parchment. You made it. I wanted to speak, to ask what this all meant, but he held up a hand. Don't. If you ask, it becomes real. And once it's real, there's no leaving again. He stood slowly. His every movement crackled like dry leaves. You took too long, he said. Now someone else has to start the shift. I stepped backward. I don't want this, I muttered. I never asked for this. You cleaned the room, he said. You followed the list. You looked in the mirror. That's all it takes. From the far corner, a small machine whirred to life. Punch-in clock. The kind I hadn't seen in years. A fresh card lay in the tray. It read, Jacob, shift #infinity. The other me walked toward it, picked it up with trembling fingers and punched out. A loud clang. Then he turned to dust. No scream. No pain. Just gone. I stood alone. The clock above me ticked once more. Forward this time. And I heard them. The rest of the staff. The ones I'd seen. The ones I'd become. They were chanting something now, all in perfect rhythm. Check in, don't check out. Clean the room, don't scream, don't shout. The mirror on the wall cracked again. This time from the inside. Then footsteps. Someone was coming. Not staff. A guest. Their suitcase rolled down the hall. They stopped just outside 313. The doorknob turned. I couldn't move. I couldn't warn them. The door opened. And I smiled. Not because I wanted to. 'Cause the hotel did. 'Cause that's what room 313 does. 'Cause someone always has to clean up. And now I wait. Until the next shift. Until the next knock. Until someone else picks up the checklist. Until you do. Welcome to the Nightshade Hotel. Your room is ready. Do not disturb.